This is my 1976 Harley Davidson SX175. Harley Davidson produced these in their factory in Italy at Varese. There's a little badge on the back. This was one of a range of motorcycles. They range from 125 to 350, and each engine size had a road bike, and these are the trail bikes, the SXs. The road bikes were SS. In Europe there was an SST, which is a road bike with a front disc, and you had the European flat bars, but I'm not sure if that was available in America. They may have just had the SS drum braked front road bike. Bought this in January '77 and owned it ever since. It was off the road most of, say, mid 80s to late 90s, and I restored it in the late 90s. These came with a 2-stroke engine which was chrome bored. Apparently saved the weight because there wasn't a liner in it, but if you had problems with the pistons, it usually wrecked the bore and you had to buy a new barrel. Or these days you can actually get them redone in either chrome or ceramics. It's the 2-stroke oil is injected in. There's a pump behind this cover here which is controlled from the throttle cable, so it's optimum oil delivery. It comes with CEV electrics, which are pretty appalling compared to the Japanese. The clocks are a bit optimistic. This is the 2-stroke oil filler. The top frame rail is a tank, runs down the bike to the frame here. That's where you put your 2-stroke oil. A lot of these bike engines fail because the youngsters neglected to keep the 2-stroke oil topped up, forgot about it. All these CEV lights were pretty standard fitment to Italian bikes manufactured in the 70s. Front forks are beta, but you could get 3 different makes: Siriani or Marisciotti. Rear shocks are beta. This bike was introduced in 1974. The earlier bikes had a different frame. The seat used to flip up. This was the later frame, came out when I think when the road bike appeared in '75. These are rear beta shocks. This has got the aluminium rear hub. It's an international 6-day trial hub. It's a quick release. Remove this spacer, draw the axle out, and then you can leave the brake, the sprockets all in place untouched. It's for quick repairs. Behind this cover's the air filter. You got a Del Ultra carburetor. The trail bikes came with these metal pegs. The road bikes had rubber. These bikes in the UK were quite expensive compared to the Japanese equivalents, so not that many were sold, and AMF Harley Davidson seemed to go for sales and not much in the way of spares backup or after sales, so a lot of the dealers were left to do all the warranty work. And then in 1977 AMF, which had an international subsidiary in Geneva, pulled out of the market. So everybody who bought these bikes was really left high and dry. And there was a guy in the UK called Mick Walker who became the concessionaire towards the end of 1977, and he fair dues, he got all the parts network up and running, but these were poor performance compared to the Japanese. I mean, you've got a single cylinder, you could get a Japanese 250, 175 would wipe these things out. I spoke to Mick Walker a few years ago, and he mentioned that maybe 3,000 or so before he took over the concessionaires. Like I say, the range went from 125 up to 350, both in road and off-road. The 350 was just about to be introduced when Harley Davidson decided to call it a day in Italy and shut the factory down in June '78. A few models were made, very few. They reckon the road bike was about 6, and the off-road was in their 40s. And then a guy in Italy bought the company, bought all the factory and the bikes and frames that were left, and he set up a company called Cagiva. And he started off in early '79. He reintroduced these models just to get him up and running. And on the badge, on the tanks, was HG Cagiva. That was just using up all the Harley Davidson spare parts that were left there. Most of the rubbers on these bikes have got the logo on them. You can tell these bikes, apart from the Cagivas, on the VIN numbers. They haven't got the H at the end of the VIN, which denotes a year, which on these would have gone from, because they were introduced in '70, so it would have been H4 or H8. The Cagivas had exactly the same VINs, but without the H numbers on. This thing will do between 60 and 70 miles per hour. You say I bought it as a young guy to get back and forth to work on. I've had it 43 years this year. He usually came in this black. You could get them in a blue, a burgundy colour, and a few other colours, mainly in the UK those colours, an orange I think. But I've seen them in gold, a few other colours, silver, and the early ones. Most of these CV parts now are getting hard to get. You can get replicas, but they don't come without the logos on the back. Same with the lights. Headlamps are pretty rare now to find in this size. Tyres, this came originally with Chen Shin. You could still get them up until a few years ago, but they're getting hard to find now with this 186 tread pattern, block tread. I think you could also buy these with OE, with Pirellis as well at the time. But mine always came with the Chen Shin. It's a 19-inch on the front, 18-inch back. The 250 model of this came with a 21-inch front wheel. This is running a 400 profile on the back and a 300 on the front. But originally, I think, if I can remember, it was a 375 or a 350 back tyre on the slightly smaller profile. You can't get them anymore. Say, nice little bike. Glad I kept hold of it. Were never really popular in the UK at the time. Like I say, the Japanese outperformed them in every way. Chrome was pretty appalling on the original few bikes up until about end of 77, and then they got their act together a bit. Same with the paint. I remember this. I used to blister the paint after the first winter. I don't think there was much. I think it was all about getting the numbers out. Lots were produced, but not many for the UK market. It wasn't a good seller. That's it. Hope you enjoy.